Hi, I'm Professor Lucien. Thank you for joining me for this introductory video for Safety 701 Research Methods in EHS. What I'd like to do is just kind of start out by talking a little bit about me. So my background was initially in chemical engineering with an emphasis in environmental engineering and a minor in chemistry. I kind of shifted course because of a lecture about the disaster at Texas City, Texas, in which several plants blew up. I was worried that maybe I would be the one blowing up a plant, so I shifted. I worked for OSHA for many years, but upon returning to graduate school, my master's and PhD are both in industrial engineering. And as you can see, when you go after a PhD, you're allowed to explore a lot of different specific areas of study, ranging from safety to human factors, socio-technical systems, organization design and management, and especially research methods. So my career path, my work experience started out with OSHA in Minnesota. Hired me as an industrial hygiene engineer and trained me to do industrial hygiene inspections, compliance inspections. I really enjoyed it, so I set out to learn the safety side of things. I caught the eye of the head of the consultation side, and so I worked for consultation for like a year or two. I spent a year out in industry as a product manager, so I put up with that about as long as I could. But I enjoyed it, but I had a desire to go back to school, and so I went back to OSHA for another year and a half. I got some really great experience. As sort of a senior level compliance officer. I got some more of the bigger, like newsworthy inspections. Then when I was in graduate school, I worked as an assistant safety director for the Department of Health and Family Services the entire time, part-time. Also did the typical grad student with being a research assistant for a few years and a teaching assistant other semesters until I graduated in 2007, I think. And then I went up to University of Minnesota Duluth. And I spent 3 years there, teaching in their industrial and mechanical engineering department, but also kind of redesigning their master's program. And then I had the opportunity to come and become part of UW Whitewater. And also in there, I've done private consulting. I actually then developed my own company name, EHS Essentials. And I'll talk about that maybe during the course. Some other things that I do, and I am a big proponent of what you put into it, you get out. And so, been a volunteer with the American Society of Safety Professionals for a very long time. I'm in my third year of 3-year commitment as the Vice President for Council of Professional Development. So I need to put in for maybe a new position starting next year. I held all of the officer positions with the Wisconsin chapter. That's out of Milwaukee. I was the former chair of the Future Safety Leaders Conference, which is probably what I'm best known for within my American Society of Safety Professionals group. But I've also participated quite a bit, volunteered a lot on Council for Educators and these focus groups like on defining the profession and rethinking the design of a nonprofit, which is ASSP. I was on the advisory board for the Wisconsin Safety Council for many years, transitioned to a colleague of mine. I do hold 3 designations, the CSP, the PE, and CIH. First one's safety, second one's engineering, third one's industrial hygiene. An interesting background, I have gotten some national and recognition here on campus for my teaching, but what's interesting is in 2009, I was the lead safety volunteer for the hit TV show Extreme Makeover Home Edition. It's on the ABC network. That was an interesting experience, but nobody got hurt, and a family got this really cool, energy-efficient home. And just to let you know, reality TV is not, in fact, reality. It's very much not. Now, for what I really like to do is I like to work with my hands. And so most weekends you can find me either out in my yard, or in my garage, or in my basement. My wife and I have purchased, remodeled, and sold 3 homes now. And we actually designed and built the one I'm in right now. I like to do gardening. I like to do landscaping. I like to do electrical work. In the wintertime, I am the lead instructor for youth archery. So I teach archery over the winter, not during a pandemic, of course. But I enjoy going out to the Stoughton Conservation Club with my kids, whether it's going to the rifle range, the pistol range, or the outdoor indoor archery range. We really enjoy that thing we do as a family. And then I've got my consulting business, which I hope to continue to develop as I can find time. So I think it's really important whenever you take on a new responsibility or take on a new challenge, journey, if you will, is that you get it properly framed. And so there's a what do you want to call it? A motto, a goal, an objective that I want you to pursue, and that is what you don't know, you don't know. Right now, I could ask you a question, you'd probably give me an answer, but are you sure of that answer? What are you basing that answer on? Can you tell me its source? Has it been tested or experimented before? We make a lot of assumptions in daily life, and when it comes to doing research, those assumptions are called into question, and we need to prove it. Who established that A causes B? Or is it that we think A causes B, but actually A causes C? And then, indirectly, they're related. And so we got to be really careful, especially when it comes to research. So framing it is the most important thing. And what I mean by framing it, I mean two different things. One is you're going to be doing a lot of literature search and review in this course. That is the foundation of framing the problem, because you may have a topic area and it's going to be too broad. And I'm going to be here to help and you and your classmates are going to be here to kind of steer it into something that's more consumable, something that's more doable. And then you have to try to answer it with the literature that's out there. Now, if you can't answer that question, therefore, your question becomes more refined and more simple as you define what we currently know about that field or about that area or topic. That's probably not making sense right now, but I will be saying it again and again until you do. One really important piece of advice I got when I was in graduate school, when it came to learning how to do research, was, when I first came up with my topic, my advisors said, you think you're going to paint the Mona Lisa, that this research project is going to answer all of the world's questions, and it's going to make people, learn everything just by looking at it. That's not what research is. Research is about one brushstroke on a painting. One brushstroke. So when you pose a question, you got to be careful, because you probably want to get a more fulfilling answer. That's not what research does. A research study is meant to just to understand something a little bit more, or maybe look at something we know a little bit differently, or maybe replicate something that we think is there, but it was only maybe proven once. Or maybe it wasn't tested in this different scenario or situation or sample population. That's what research is. And that's what I'm going to slowly but surely, begrudgingly teach you in this course. Because you'll learn, you'll understand. I did make some substantial updates since spring. One is, and this was a comment from the students in the spring, and that is that the librarians' videos were a little bit old because they had done upgrades to the library website. She heard that, and she re-recorded all of them plus some. And so even though she's not listed as the instructor, she's someone I want you to go to get to know. She will make your learning of how to use the library resources a lot easier, and it'll make the course a lot easier. And the students loved her, and she really likes to help too. So here's some of her information. She's going to be a big part of lectures 1 and 2, just so you know. She's going to teach you how to do APA citations and provide you resources for doing that. And then she's going to teach you how to use the library resources and citation management systems in order to just make the whole process easier. So please, Naomi Shem, you're going to want to get to know her as well. Another is that students were complaining that the quiz questions didn't match the readings. I agree, no more quizzes. But what I did is we're going to have reflections. It's going to be a short reflection on what did you really take away from this week's or this module's learning, and I want to know how you connected to it. That'll help me better frame it for future classes. Another question is the course paper. It's going to be a research proposal. You are not going to be collecting data. You are not going to be doing any analysis or writing. You're simply proposing a study. Just proposing it. You're not actually doing it. You're just proposing it. I hope that's clear. That stressed out a lot of students in the spring. And then over the summer, and I think I've had at least half of you in a previous class, we're going to try to do the live discussion sessions. But unlike Safety 783, I still want you to go to the discussion board and share some of the things we had talked about. That was the one thing that kind of messed with how I was scoring and grading, is that some people would just show up, wouldn't really say much, but then they got all the points. So I want you to come to the discussion and we'll talk through things. And I think this course is much different. This is much more interactive, as far as this is a lot more challenging than the 783 class. 783 class, we talked about topics and it was really cool. This is going to be a little bit more painful. I don't want to worry you, but learning how to do research is learning to rethink. And some people have more difficulty in doing that than others. Just let you know. I did. The course textbook is on the screen. It's the 10th edition. I know there are other editions. I just don't want you to spend all the money on a new book. When I did a search just last week, I was finding you could rent one for like $25, $30. You could buy it used for like $25 to $35. I think there might have been some $40 options. So I hope you all can find that, whether you're using Amazon or half.com or something else. You don't have to buy the AP manual, because I'm going to be having you use the library resources. Because really, how often do you use APA citations other than in a research class? So save the money. This course is 8 weeks. Although it's just 7 modules, the 8th week is reserved for presentations and writing your paper, or finish writing your proposal, I should say. I tried to standardize it the best I could, because I think, when you know what to expect from week to week, it gets easier. So I have all of these different things identified and discussed, described under each module, and everything's basically due on Sundays. There's a few things that maybe could go and be submitted on a Monday without any penalty, but full submission folders will only be open until that following Friday. So you have 5 days to get things in beyond its due, but you're going to take a little bit of a hit when it comes to submitting late. But if you email me prior, I can always provide extensions. You're going to do human subjects protection training in week 3. That takes some time. It takes hours, and so I'm also going to be trying to post things on Saturday for the coming week, because some of you may get ahead, and then you could actually start on the next week on a Saturday and get stuff done. It's up to you. That was another thing that came up over the spring. People were like, could you release things a little bit early? And it makes things a little bit difficult for me from a course management perspective, but I'm going to try and accommodate. We'll see what we could do with that. You should be submitting your research proposal topic in week 4. But I'm giving you 2 whole weeks to make sure it gets refined. So by the end of the 5th week, I want everybody approved, and there's points awarded for making sure it gets approved. And then the 8th week, we'll do presentations and the papers. I do that Saturday. Here's a breakdown. Yeah, this looks a little bit complex, but believe me, it's a good diversity of ways to assess you and assist you. Each week you're going to have an assignment. It's going to be very simple. You'll have readings to do, and that'll go along with the assignment. You'll be participating in the discussion board, and I've got interesting topics, including almost like a therapeutic, what are you going with? Because when you guys all talk to each other about the issues you're having, the pain you're going through, it makes it easier to handle and adjust and acclimate to. Believe me, I've been doing this for a while now, and it does help quite a bit. And then instead of having the quizzes, I created this weekly reflection. And again, I'm going to have you explain to me how you connected to the material, or what was the lesson that impacted you the most. That'll help me reforming the course in the future, because I am probably going to adopt a new version of the textbook in the future. And so this is kind of a transition point for me. And I've got the human subjects protection training. That's 10% of your grade as well. That's basically get it done, don't get it done, full points. And then the final paper, it's 25% of your grade. And you see the breakdown that 25% is just for getting it approved by week 5. 25% of that is in a presentation. We'll do them over WebEx. And then submitting a paper. And I'll provide you with examples of previous semester's papers as well. I've already got it built in. So here is this is from the syllabus. This is sort of the schedule. You can see I put little boxes along the side, and that's meant to help you check things off as you go. What can I tell you now that will help you at the beginning? And that is that the scientific method, which is to say, scientific method is basically how you do research, the Socratic method, is not linear. It's not an algebraic if-then. Do this, then that. It's very creative. But there are steps that must be accomplished. But you may make a decision or capture a viewpoint, but then as you go through the process of your literature review and writing it up, you may find a flaw and you may have to go back. So research is not a linear step. It's more like a chutes and ladders, where sometimes you jump way ahead, but then you slide back. Don't be frustrated. That's the way the process is. And so when I'm helping you this semester, there may be times where I say, hey, everything's going really well. This topic sounds good. But then as you start collecting literature and summarizing it and comparing and contrasting what the researchers have found, we may have to either go back to the beginning or completely starting over, and we may have to rethink things, I should say. Sometimes you go back a little bit and do something. Sometimes it's perfect and it drives you way ahead. It's hard to say. It really depends on what you choose and what's being published. I guess that's all I want to say about that. This is just what I want you to be able to do. We will accomplish all of these elements of learning because I tied these very directly to how the course is designed and how I assess you each week. And at the end of each week, I will be doing the gradings on Mondays, and then I will create a review video in which I'll talk about your scores, not only how you performed on what was submitted, but what I saw on the discussion board, questions that I received from students that week that weren't put on the Canvas site. Also, how much time and how many touches people have on the Canvas site each week. You'll be able to then gauge yourself against your peers, and I can talk a little bit more as far as, are you spending enough time on the site? Are you looking at everything that you should be? Here's just a look at the library. I already talked about Naomi. Definitely reach out to her. Don't be afraid to. She is awesome to work with, and she will save you literally hours of time and literally cases of beer of stress. If that's how you measure stress. She's awesome, though. We're really lucky to have her. So here is just a summary of the paper and the presentation. The biggest issue is you will probably have a really good idea of what you want to do without having really looked at the literature enough. And so that's where you do the ebb and flow, where you jump back and forth. If you kind of have a general concept, but you want the literature to tell you what is known about it, and then once you've gotten all that, said, okay, well, we don't know this. Okay, I can study it based on what was collected. That's how research should be done. But as human nature, we usually want to get excited about something first, and then we find out what's there. So it's like, yeah, I built these great walls. Let's build the foundation now. Oh no, it's not good dirt. That's just the kind of the way it works. But we learn from that. We learn that it's all about experience. And a lot of thing with research too is everybody thinks that, oh, I have to get an answer. I got to get the answer that I thought it was going to be. No. Learning that something doesn't work is just as important, maybe more important than when it does work. I think people forget that. It's a learning process. It's a continuously learning process. And you have to be disciplined in understanding what others have done and the way they did it. And do the results really make sense, which we call face validity. We don't do that enough today, especially in the mainstream media. So, we're at the end here, and I went way too long. I apologize. I'll try to be... No, I always go long. We are actually going to be revisiting, in many ways, the old philosophers. And I've got a few of them here on the screen, and you probably already read their quotes, but we're going to go back and really pontificate on, does this cause that? Why do humans do these things? Why do workers not do these things? That's what research is all about. And to realize that we're going to try to add knowledge to the general body of knowledge, add lessons, that's a really big goal. That's not the word I wanted. But I think you kind of get what I mean, that this is going to be a difficult experience. No, it's going to be a challenging experience, but it's going to be worth it. You're going to be different after this course. This course really defines its difference in quality and value versus other master's degree programs, because it's really going to take you to a new place. But let it, because sometimes during the semester you're going to do something that we call in academia go down the rabbit hole. and you're going to learn some things, and it's going to get you really excited. And that's what this is all about. It's not about, hey, well, what do you want me to write about? You have to tell me what's worth to what topic is worth the attention to be investigated. That's going to be a little bit different than what you had in previous courses, but it's going to make you a better scientist, and it's going to make the rest of your graduate coursework a little bit more meaningful and probably easier. I could babble on for a very long time. So please go to the Canvas site if you haven't already and introduce yourself on the icebreaker, and then get working on week 1. There's a couple chapters to read. If you don't have the book, I can provide you with PDF versions of chapters 1 and 2, at least to get you through the first week. But I do want to start scheduling the live office hours or live discussions as soon as possible. So make sure you let me know what times work for you, days and times. All right. Thanks, everybody.